Second. We'd like to call this evening's meeting of the Peoria City Council to order. Welcome H. Wayne Wilson and his listening audience at WCBU as well as Cable Channel 22. Madam Clerk, the council microphones are open for roll call.
Mayor Artis. Councilmember Akeson. Councilmember Sear.
Here.
Councilmember Grab.
Here.
Councilmember Jensen.
Here.
Councilmember Montalongo.
Here.
Councilmember Moore. Councilmember Euler.
Here.
Councilmember Riggenbach.
Here.
Councilmember Ruckriegel.
Here.
And Councilmember Turner. You have a quorum present, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'd like to invite everyone to join us and stand for a moment of silent prayer or silent reflection followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. We'd also like to ask everyone's consideration for the family of Captain Gary Stroudhammer, who was captain of on our Peoria Fire Department, who passed early this morning after his battle with cancer. There will be information coming about those services, but we'd like everyone to please keep the captain and his family in your thoughts and prayers, and also his brothers and sisters at the fire department. Okay, we have one Small Business Excellence Award and one proclamation to the citywide celebration of women. And so we're going to start with the Small Business Excellence Award. I'm going to ask Chelsea and anybody else who'd like to come, if anyone, join me at the center podium. So we're continuing our recognition of small businesses in the city of Peoria. So tonight it gives me great pleasure to recognize some person that's doing business in our community that's really doing a lot when it comes to branding and also a lot of positive promotion for the city of Peoria. And Chelsea Tams is the owner of Lettering Works. Little bit of history. Chelsea's favorite class as a high school student in Cary, Illinois was art. It was a love that she carried with her as a student at Bradley University, where she double majored in Spanish and graphic design, as well as minoring in marketing. In 2016, her senior year at Bradley, when most students were trying to figure out the next steps after college, Chelsea wasted no time. She started Lettering Works, her design company. She also created Just My Type of Lettering, which is an instructional book that not only evolved into her senior honors project, but later won her multiple awards from the Peoria Area Ad Club, including the Best in Show. Chelsea's success at Bradley included winning the entrepreneurship competitions, Brave Pitch, and Project Springboard, as well as receiving the President's Award at the Bradley University Student Scholarship Expo that year. Following graduation, residency at the Prairie Center of the Arts allowed her to expand on an idea she'd been entertaining that highlighted different restaurants, destinations, and local spots in Peoria. I'm sure many of you have probably seen it. It's titled One City, 6 Ways. And building on that theme came another project, 100 Days of Peoria, featuring different Peoria locales over 100 days. The book, which will be available soon, is in the last 4 days of a successful Kickstarter campaign. Chelsea's worked on several city and county campaigns as well as nonprofits and the Hello Peoria project. Her work can be seen on t-shirts, stickers, buttons, and several of the popular Snapchat filters that visitors and residents use on the riverfront and downtown. Her story and work have been featured in the Peoria Journal-Star, IBI, and Art and Society magazine. She even voluntarily promoted City Hall with a unique logo and design celebrating our Best City Hall title. So on behalf of the entire City Council and the City of Peoria, I want to thank Chelsea Tamms and her continued investment in our community and the promotion of our community as well. So at this time, I'd like to present her with the plaque that says the Peoria Small Business Excellence Award presented to Lettering Works. Thank you for your investment in Peoria.
Thank you, Mayor, Stacy, City Council, and truly the entire Peoria community. It has been an incredible honor to be recognized by the city for the work that I've done with Lettering Works here in Peoria. Just a few years ago, I would have never imagined that I would be just shy of 24 and being recognized as a successful entrepreneur and small business owner. I owe so much of my success to my wonderful family and friends who have continuously encouraged me. I am still in awe that I'm able to do what I love every day. It is because of the amazing support from the Peoria community, more specifically that of art and entrepreneurship, that I am able to turn my many ideas into reality. From designing postcards to my first real art show at the Prairie Center of the Arts, to popular Snapchat filters, to full campaigns, to a soon-to-be fully funded and printed book, the community projects that I've worked on for Peoria have been some of the most fulfilling projects I've taken on. I can only hope that my work continues to resonate with the community for years to come. Thank you.
Next up is our proclamation for the citywide celebration of women. Whereas the citywide celebration of women in the arts, an initiative of Arts Partners of Central Illinois, will be held throughout the community at galleries, studios, churches, Bradley University, and other organizations from October 1st to November 19th, 2017. And whereas the citywide celebration of women in the arts will not only feature exhibits and demonstrations, but also musical events, literary readings, theater performances, and the opportunity to learn from the women who create in our community and beyond. And whereas the citywide celebration of women in the arts commemorates the achievements of all creative women, pays tributes to their bodies of work, and applauds their ability to inspire future generations of artists. Now, therefore, I, Jim Artis, Mayor of the City of Peoria, do hereby proclaim October the 1st through November the 19th as citywide celebration of women in the arts in Peoria, Illinois. Kristen McKenzie is the president of the board, and she will give us a little more information. Kristen?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilman. And Jen Gordon, our Executive Director, is with us tonight as well. We're very grateful to receive this award and appreciate the continued support of the city as this project has continued to grow and evolve over the past 4 years. And it's this recognition this evening is particularly meaningful to the visual and performing artists, the musicians, the dancers, the actors, all the other creative women that were listed on the proclamation. It helps them, they appreciate knowing that the city recognizes the impact that their efforts in the arts have on the community, as well as the importance of the collaborations that they so frequently put together. The celebration is just a sampling of what goes on in the city all of the time. We have it at this time of year in large part because October is the National Humanities Month. And even though, even as in other areas, the arts still, women have to struggle sometimes to be able to find the ways and the opportunities to make their living in what they love. But we do this also to inspire the young women and girls of tomorrow that they will follow their dreams and be creative, find their creative voice in every way possible. So thank you again, and please participate.
This late edition was not in the form of a proclamation, but I was asked to make an announcement that the Friendship House, just up the street here on Madison, has a new CEO. And that new CEO is embarking on a pretty serious initiative to help them raise some money. Those of us down here, and certainly in the north part of the valley, know everything that the Friendship House does for our community, but they've had some significant unplanned expenses this year, including new air conditioning, and they've also served as a cooling center many times this summer in this heat. So the new CEO is Robert Montgomery, and he's starting his tenure at the Peoria Friendship House by living on the roof of the Friendship House until he raises $500,000. And he's down there right now. I think he went up earlier today, and he literally is going to be up on the roof of the Friendship House, raising awareness for everything the Friendship House does in our community, and he will continue to stay up there until they raise $500,000. So if anybody, there's so many people out there that already supports the Friendship House, this is thank you to them for all that they've done, but also for the rest of us to take a moment and recognize the needs of the community and what Friendship House does for us, and try to get that guy off the roof here within a day or two. Thank you. Councilman Graham.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the minutes of the regularly scheduled City Council meeting of September 12, 2017 as outlined.
Thank you. Seconded by Councilmember Turner. Are there any corrections or changes to the minutes? I'm seeing none. Well, please cast your ballots to approve the minutes. That motion passes unanimously. Councilmember Turner.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session in anticipation of pending litigation.
Okay. Seconded by Councilmember Regenbach. Councilor Leist.
Yes, Your Honor. A motion would be appropriate pursuant to Section 2C11 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act to go into executive session to discuss imminent or pending litigation.
Okay. We have a motion to go into executive session, which we don't anticipate will last very long. So we will be returning to do business. We have a motion and a second. Please cast your ballots. That motion passes unanimously. Councilmember Reckriegel.
Thank you, Mayor. And make a motion to reconvene our city council meeting today.
Okay, seconded by Councilmember Euler. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Make a note that all council members are present with the exception of Councilmember Moore. Yes, we have our first item of business is a township item. 17-279 is a communication from the town board with a request to approve monthly anticipated expenditures for September 2017 for the town of the city of Peoria.
Thank you. Trustee Graham?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve those expenditures as outlined.
Motion to approve, seconded by Trustee Turner. Are there any discussion or questions on this item? Trustee Sear?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I'd just like to request, there's two different, or three different set of numbers I'm looking at here. And I talked to a few of them, but I'd like to request the possibility of getting a year-to-date column added to our reports that we get every month. I see a budget and I see a monthly expenditure, but I don't see a year-to-date. I'd like to add that so I can compare numbers on these reports.
Okay. Thank you. Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your ballots. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
We're at the consent agenda. 17-280 is a communication from the Human Resource Director and City Manager with a request to enter into an agreement between the City of Peoria and all employee bargaining units to extend the Joint Labor Management Healthcare Committee for 3 years, effective January 1, 2018 through December 31, 2020. 17-281 is a request to authorize the city manager to execute the collective bargaining agreement negotiated between the City of Peoria and the Peoria Police Benevolent Association covering the period from January 1, 2017 through December 31, 2019. 17-282 is a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff for the following. A is to approve a resolution approving an annexation agreement for property at 6029 West Eagle Creek Drive. B is a request to adopt an ordinance annexing the territory located at 6029 West Eagle Creek Drive. And C is a request to adopt an ordinance rezoning property from a Class R3 Peoria County single-family residential to an R2 single-family residential located at 6029 West Eagle Creek Drive. 17-283 is a request to adopt an ordinance to vacate 1,367.7 square feet portions on West Forest Hill Avenue and on North Gale Avenue with a general address of 1930 West Forest Hill Avenue. 17-284 is a request to concur with a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission to adopt an ordinance rezoning property from a Class R4 single-family residential district to a Class CN neighborhood commercial district for a property located at 908-912 West Howett Street and 313 and to 319 New Street. 17-285 is a request to concur with the recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission to adopt an ordinance approving a special use in a Class CN district for a convent for property located at 60 Northeast Monroe Street. 17-286 is an appointment by Mayor Artis to the Downtown Advisory Commission with a request to concur of Alma Brown. 17-287 is a request to receive and file the 2018 budget of the Peoria Civic Center Authority. 17-288 is a request to receive and file the month ended August 31, 2017 unaudited financial report. And 17-289 is a report from City Treasurer Patrick A. Nichtine for the month of August 2017 with a request to receive and file, and that completes your consent agenda.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any items to remove from consent this evening? Councilman Euler?
17-281.
281, okay. Any other items to remove from consent? Seeing no lights, we have a motion by Councilman Regenbach to approve the remaining items, seconded by Councilmember Ruckriegel. If there's no further discussion, please cast your ballots. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Madam Clerk?
17-281 is the collective bargaining agreement negotiated between the City of Peoria and the Peoria Police Benevolent Association.
Thank you. Councilman Euler?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I pulled this off the consent agenda tonight because due to our current financial circumstances in the city, I don't believe that we can let this go without discussion. I appreciate the city manager's effort and the police benevolent effort to work on this ahead of potential arbitration and come to an agreement. I know that's a challenging thing to do, but we also are in a very difficult time period. We have an $8 million budget deficit. I sat through a presentation in council chambers last week and listened to a presentation from the Fire and Pension Board telling us that we need to kick in an extra $6 million a year that we're not currently putting into police and fire pensions, pushing us to potentially a $15 million budget deficit if we were to consider doing something like that. And then to have raises on the table when we don't have a way to pay for them, I just don't understand how we can go forward with that. When you look at the fact that, we could be looking at an officer in a few months from now and saying that we're going to have to let you go because the person next to you was given a raise and we can't shore up our budget. Looking at our other employees and telling them that we aren't going to be able to give them raises this year when we gave the police officers raises. Or looking at other employees and telling them that they're going to have to be cut because of that. And I don't understand at this juncture how we can go forward with approving raises when we are in a situation where we have a significant shortfall and looking years into the future where we stand with this pension situation and how further raises are going to further complicate that situation. And then also taking that back to the citizens and saying that we're going to have to raise your property taxes and your other fees to accommodate for that. And I respect what the officers do. I respect everything that they give to the city. I could never do that job, and it has nothing to do with the job or the people that are doing it. It's about the situation that we're in, and we don't have solutions at this time. And I can't let this go without bringing that up as a discussion point, and I think that we have to have some solutions before we go down the path of increasing salaries. Thank you.
Okay. Further discussion on this item? Mr. Manager, did you want to make a comment just in terms of the position we find ourselves in with collective bargaining?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I think we're all aware, we are in a situation with public safety employees where they have interest arbitration. They have given up the right to strike in order to have an arbitration clause that's built into they've given up the right to strike in order to ensure that they have arbitration if we reach impasse. And in 2014, leading into 2015, And then 2016, we had a situation where we went into arbitration with the Police Benevolent Association. At that time, we were looking to move down the cost curve on our contract. As the process works itself out, we were trying to adjust the salary schedules and the pay scale. We went to arbitration. The arbitrator said that we had a breakthrough, that we should be talking about this, but that we didn't offer a large enough quid pro quo for foregoing that benefit. And so the challenge is in a situation where there's arbitration, where the decision isn't in the hands of you as the elected body, but in the hands of an arbitrator, they have to go on past decisions, and they look at the contract and the maturity of the contract. They look at everything that comes before it. And if you're going to take anything away, then you have to give something in return for getting that takeaway. So it's not, while we would certainly love to negotiate a contract here that had a 0% salary increase, knowing that some of the fiscal challenges that we face, we don't really have that capability. In fact, in an email that I sent yesterday to the editorial page editor, I stated that the system effectively removes significant control from the city in deciding economic matters for public safety employees. The city cannot control what comparables, the cities that we are compared against, and what they decide to pay their employees. The city does not set the standards that arbitrators use when they set those offers that are accepted. And the nature of arbitration is such that the unions have little to gain from bargaining on significant changes because they know that the arbitrators will not likely side on those fundamental changes unless we're offering up something in return. So this results in we're saddled with agreements that we've previously negotiated in very different economic times that are difficult to change because of the interest arbitration system. It's just the nature of the system that we have. So it becomes very difficult for us to go forward.
Thank you. Hey, sometimes it's just more incumbent on us, I think, to get that information out to the public. It's not just a matter of the council deciding to put these raises out. When you have interest arbitration, if we offer 1% and they offer 5%, an arbitrator is going to pick one or the other, for the most part, based on what the external comparables are. So it's almost simplifying it too much to say in a tough economy, we shouldn't be doing this, because we're really rolling the dice if we think that the arbitrator is actually going to come back in our favor and say, okay, they're only going to get 1%. That's the box we put ourselves in, and probably the other biggest misperception out there is that we have the ability to negotiate pensions, which we don't. We know, and we're trying to help people understand that those are all perks, if you will, that are given out by the state legislature. It's an unfunded mandate to the cities. That is an amount that they require us to contribute that we pay for. Councilmember Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As a follow-up question to the city manager's explanation, can you just explain what the comparables are? What are other cities doing, what their raises are, so we can explain to the public how this contract fits in that?
Unfortunately, I don't have the comparables in front of me of what other communities have negotiated right now. I apologize for that. Our comparable communities are Bloomington, Normal, Springfield, Rockford, Rock Island, Decatur, Moline, Champaign, and Urbana. Those are the communities that are in our comparable set that they look at. And what ends up happening is that the arbitrators and the mediator, you start with mediation first if you can't reach an agreement, will look at what other contracts are giving, or what other raises and cost of living adjustments are being made by each one of those communities. And they'll take that into consideration as they make their determination. In our last go-round, when we went and negotiated with the unions, we were looking to change the salary schedule, and then the union had a request for 2.5% a year. The arbitrator sided with the union, so we then implemented the 2.5% per year once that contract was complete. This go-round, instead of starting to go into a protracted negotiation over those salary increases, we said, look, we'll forego talking about the salary schedule, but we're going to need a lower COLA in order to do that. And that's what this agreement includes, is a 1% COLA in 2018. So going into next budget year, this is the lowest COLA that the police have had in at least 12 years.
The follow-up, what's the COLA for the other 2 years?
It's 2.25 effective 1/1 of 2017, 1% in 2018, and then 2% in 2019. Excuse me. So, and I think that's included on the council communication.
Thank you.
Point of information for the listening public is all of those internal and external comparables across the board that the manager mentioned were given to us, and we discussed that in executive session numerous times, just so we knew what the comparables were. That wouldn't be new information. Councilman Grab.
Well, and this is not unique to the members of the Peoria Police Benevolent Association. We have the same process and the same factors that adhere for our other bargaining units as well. Speaking with a certain amount of experience in this area, I remember listening to school board meetings a number of years ago when they were talking about how horrible it was that they were saddled with paying for the teachers' pensions who are out there every day working hard for the kids. And one just had to get the impression that the elected leaders didn't really appreciate what they were doing when they used terms like saddled with, etc. But of course, the public expects miracles from our public servants, the people who are out there every day, whether they're teaching in a classroom, whether they're doing code enforcement, firemen, or whatever. So it's not unique to the police department what we're being asked to do. And you roll the dice on this, you could end up with a far less satisfactory position for our taxpayers. And that is the caveat, I think, Manager, you've been trying to convey here. I think we all understand the circumstances we find ourselves in financially, but city budgets are about 80% personnel, correct?
Big chunk.
So, you know, these are the folks who do the work for our citizens, who clean the snow off the streets. I shouldn't say that today because it doesn't seem like it's ever going to happen. But we could end up with a far worse, if I can even use the term worse, situation financially if this went into interest arbitration. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Motion?
I would move to approve.
Motion to approve, seconded by Councilmember Turner. Is there any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, please cast your ballots. That motion passes with 9 ayes, 1 nay. Councilmember Euler. Madam Clerk.
We are at first readings. 17-290 is a request for a first reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 28 of the Code of the City of Peoria pertaining to traffic and motor vehicles to provide language consistent with the City of Peoria Bicycle Master Plan.
Director Black or Director Reese? Director Reese. Which?
Tonight, what we brought forward is some ordinance language to tie into the Illinois Vehicle Code, or so that the city's ordinance matches the Illinois Vehicle Code. And then also, we took some best practices from the city of Chicago and their bicycle safety acknowledgement. And basically, it just has cars yielding to the bicyclists when they're turning right or left. As we install bicycle lanes in town, we started to see more riders, and so we wanted to bring awareness to that. And then the Illinois Vehicle Code calls for a 3-foot buffer if you're next to a car, or a bicycle if you're in a vehicle. And so we were just trying to align the city's ordinance with the Illinois Vehicle Code.
Okay. Any questions on this on the first reading? Councilman Regenbach?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Director Reese, for the bringing this forward. I had been approached by some of the members of Bike Peoria about some of these very issues that are addressed here with these 3 changes, as well as some public information. So I think this is pretty common sense to most of us, but as I'm sure the other council members get phone calls and emails from people about the bike lanes and the purpose of our commitment to them and the way bike riders ride, I think it's just really important that we have public awareness of this, because this is an important safety issue first and foremost. And I think as we talk about sustainability and those types of issues, we're seeing more and more people riding bikes, whether it's to work or for recreation. So I know I would anticipate more dialogue in the next 2 weeks on this, Director. We appreciate you bringing this forward as it is, and I think we'll need to make sure that the awareness and the public education part is part of this as we move forward. Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion on this first reading? I know, Director Reese, I didn't get a chance to talk to you today, but one of the other things, I'm not sure if it's in the Chicago model or not, but I think we need to look at situations where this addresses when a bike and a vehicle are going in the same direction. The car can't turn in front of them. But just consider a lot of the intersections we have in town with a right turn arrow. So if someone is coming opposing that, and I'll use the intersection that happens to me 5 times a week, south on Sheridan, and they have a right turn going to westbound Northmore. So the cars are coming up at a pretty high rate of speed down Sheridan Road, and they have a right turn arrow to get onto Northmore. Most people don't stop first. They look at that right turn arrow like it just means you can keep going, and they don't. So when bicyclists or someone else is going to cross that street, even if they don't have the go-ahead to, it's really dangerous. So I think what we need to do is really maybe reevaluate some of these intersections that we have right turns, especially next to bike lanes, and what we can potentially do to make those intersections safer as well. Okay. Councilman Graham?
I agree with that 100%, Mayor. I'm glad you mentioned that. And I think the council should be proud of the fact that, from the people in our community, we've been hearing a lot about the need to be a little less car-centric as a community and more pedestrian-friendly and bicyclist-friendly. And, we talk about saving money in terms of health care and everything. More people bicycling and safely bicycling will ultimately benefit not only this community but our entire country. And I appreciate the vision that the Public Works Department has had for a number of years now, moving in that direction instead of being so focused on getting every car to speed as quickly as it can through our city. Thank you, Mayor, for your comments, and thank you, Director Reese.
Okay, thank you. Additional discussion or comments for Public Works on this one? I'm seeing no lights, so a motion to receive and file. Councilman Sear, seconded Councilman Ruckriegel. Seeing no lights, please cast your ballots. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Madam Clerk?
17-291 is a request for a first reading review of an ordinance amending Chapter 13 of the Code of the City of Peoria pertaining to litter and vegetation.
Director Black.
Thank you, Mayor. This item is in response to some discussion, that occurred at the Council Strategic Planning sessions. The city manager asked us to put this together that does various things. First of all, it clarifies the responsibility of property owners in terms of what area they need to keep clean, including commercial property owners. So the first bullet point requires that commercial businesses sweep sidewalks, curbs, and other right-of-way immediately adjacent to their properties. The second item just increases the initial ticket for a violation from $50 to $100. Excuse me. Third item is it requires that business establishments that sell food, beverages, or packaged foods have a garbage can located within 10 feet of their public entrances or exits. Most businesses like that in town already do. However, there are a few that don't, and studies have shown that having a garbage can in close proximity to the entrance or exit to a food establishment significantly reduces littering. And then the final item here is the requirement that property owners are responsible for vegetation on the curbs and gutters adjacent to their property, so weeds and grass that are growing up in the curb line and in the gutters. Be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Any questions for Director Black? Councilwoman Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, thank you, Director Brack, for bringing this back so quickly after our strategic planning sessions. I've got a 3 or 4 questions with regard to how it'll work. With the policy that's explained in here, that if code enforcement has visited the property multiple times in the last 12 months, a citation will be issued for the violation. Will there also be a notice to abate issued at the same time?
Correct. The enforcement process will be the same as it is right now. If a violation is found at a property that is occupied, then we leave a notice to abate that gives the property owner 5 days or 6 days to resolve the violation themselves. If the violation is not resolved within 5 or 6 days, then we will send a contractor out to clean up whatever needs to be cleaned up or cut whatever grass. And then typically we would issue a ticket at the same time as the work order. If there is a property that is a habitual offender, then the code enforcement inspector has the discretion to issue a ticket immediately. Generally speaking, if it's a first-time offense, a ticket will not be issued. But if we're back at the same property 2, 3, 4, 10 times in a 2 or 3 month period, then at that point, the inspector will probably issue a ticket.
So as a follow-up, what you are doing is giving a notice to abate if they're not a habitual violator. You're giving them a notice to abate first, and then a ticket if they don't clean it up in 5 days, if they haven't complied with the notice to abate.
If it's the first time, maybe the second time. If it's a habitual offender, then a ticket would be issued at the same point that we leave the abate notice.
I just wanted to clarify and make sure that's how it was going to be. I have a couple questions similar about the change in owner responsibility about the area between the property and the public way that Public Works has been taking care of, I guess, I don't know for how long, but at least in the recent. What do most other cities do? Do we know? Do they require the property owners to do that, or?
It's all over the field. There are some communities that require the property owner to maintain to the curb and any grass that's in the curb or the gutter. And there are other communities that say to the back of the sidewalk. So even the maintenance of the sidewalk or the parkway is not the responsibility of the private property owner, but of the city. So there is no real majority that goes one way or the other.
And then as a follow-up, if they don't take care of it, will notice to abate tickets be issued? And high grass or whatever, or weeds or whatever the violation is?
Correct. We would follow the same process where if someone has grass in their gutter curb line, we would issue a notice to abate. 5 or 6 days later, if the violation isn't corrected, then we would issue a work order and have a contractor clean it up.
And this will apply to all property owners, right? Not just commercial?
Correct. This would be all property owners.
And this is a pretty big policy change for us, isn't it?
This is I would say a significant policy change. The practice for as long as I've been here is that the responsibility of the private property owner ends on the property side of the curb and not into the street.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Gribb?
Well, Director Black, I want to be sure as we look at the first change that staff has recommended, talks about sweeping sidewalks. Are we talking snow here? Because we've had that discussion about some of the tight areas, certainly in 61606, which is within my district, the Main Street corridor, for example, if the proprietor is trying to figure out what to do with the snow, what happens if it goes into the street, or does this not cover snow?
This does not cover snow.
Thank you. Do we contemplate something coming back on that?
Yes.
I'm just telling you in advance what my concern is, so thank you.
Thanks, Councilman. Any further questions on this first reading? The one thing I would like to ask is that this is just a first reading, so it's not going to be official yet, but if this is something that the council approves, I would like to suggest that we give a grace period or a time that we can make sure we get this information out to the public because this is a significant change, which I fully support, but going from basically I mean, we have ordinances on the books that cover litter and things like this, but this is really kind of dialing it down. So I think we need to get that information out there the best that we can. And the other part of it would be, and I know Public Works does a really good job at this, but I think that we have to be even more alert to our property, the medians especially. If we're going to be fining people for having weeds growing in their curb, we need to make sure that we are very diligent about holding ourselves to the same standard. Councilman Montalongo.
Thank you, Mayor. Director Black, just one quick question. I know it says other right-of-ways. Does this include alleys, or can you comment about that?
This would include alleys.
If there's no further discussion, I would accept a motion to receive and file. Councilmember Akeson, seconded by Councilmember Montalongo. Please cast your ballots. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
17-292 is a first reading review of an ordinance amending Chapter 3, Article 2, Section 52.6 of the Code of the City of Peoria, authorizing the purchase and use of a 15-day liquor license.
Is there any discussion on this first reading? Okay, it's pretty straightforward. We have a motion to receive and file. Councilman Euler, seconded Councilman Sear. Please cast your ballots. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
We're at regular business. 17-293 is a communication from the city manager with a request to approve a voluntary separation incentive.
Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What you have in front of you is a request for council to approve a voluntary separation incentive for our employees as an effort as part of the budget process to avoid involuntary separation from the city at this time. In 2008 and 2009, the city had a voluntary separation initiative that they offered as part of the budget deliberations during the Great Recession. That was a $50,000 cash incentive that was paid out over a 5-year period of time for the employees. This time, we had heard from some employees that were nearing retirement that the cost of health insurance and paying for health insurance is one of the barriers to leaving the employment of the city. So we have crafted the program to not include a cash buyout, but simply have a $30,000 incentive that would be put into an account for them to be used to pay down their health insurance costs at whatever they have, whether they have family coverage or whether they have single coverage, until that $30,000 is exhausted, and it would cover their portion of the plan. The period would open if you approve it on October 2nd. By November 15th, eligible employees would have to sign up, and then they would have to retire by December 15th. So that's the window. I think as we've looked at this and we've looked at the IRS code, contributions to health plans aren't considered income. So in that regard, we've looked at this as a way of providing that benefit to the employees that would give them the full $30,000 benefit. When we had the $50,000 cash incentive that was offered the last time, there were taxes taken out of that, so that was one of the other issues. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the manager on this proposal? Councilman Ruckriegel.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of quick questions on this. One, on this plan that's putting forward in front of us here, how does this relate if maybe the health care is taken through a spouse or another department, so there are no health care expenses for somebody who might be a part of this plan?
Well, if what we have contemplated is that this is a benefit that's for those employees that are electing to utilize our health insurance coverage. I think what we can certainly do is look at if somebody doesn't have our health plan currently and isn't taking that, how we could structure some sort of payout in that regard. But it was really designed looking at most of our employees are utilizing our health insurance. There's only a handful that really aren't. So that was the reason why we looked at it this way.
Thank you. And do we have a targeted number that we're trying to identify that might take part of the plan?
When we looked at this in the 2008-2009 window, we had 31 employees took advantage of the program. If we were fortunate enough to get 15, I would be pleased with that. This does not include, one caveat, this does not include our commissioned public safety employees, so police and fire are not included in this. So that, those sworn officers that are part of the bargaining units of those two units are not part of this, and because of the backfilling that would be required of those positions.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay. Councilwoman Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got several questions. First, as a follow-up then to Councilman Ruckriegel's question, you said you would be pleased if 15 employees took it. Do you have any idea if that's realistic or how many might take it? Have you surveyed the employees?
We have, HR has informally had conversations or have, had conversations with department heads that have come back that have said, there may be some employees in our department that are looking to retire in the next year and they may be interested in doing this if we can accelerate that up. But we did not send out an official survey to all the employees asking them about this. We did not. I mean, we did meet with AFSCME, and we talked to them about the concept of a voluntary separation. We did, and then offered the same to both the police union and to the fire union as well, as we were talking about that. But then we just decided to limit it at this point in time to just those employees that are not part of the police and fire unions, just because of the need to backfill.
So I guess if you don't have a number, do you have a projected cost, what this would cost us initially, and then a projection of how much money we would save down the road?
If we have 15 people take it, that's $450,000 that we would be paying out as part of the incentive.
Right.
And then it becomes a question of then, are we going to fill that position or not fill that position? You would have the most benefit if you don't fill that position, whoever leaves. But by the nature of this, there's some fluidity to it because you don't know who's going to take it. If the corporation counsel took it, we'd still have to fill that position, and we'd still have to have a corporation counsel. So you would have to fill that position, and you'd have to backfill within the organization. So some of this is going to be dynamic in that regard, and we're going to have to look at it and then come back to you and say this position will get filled or this position won't.
So I guess, is there a reason why we have to do this by October 2nd? Because we just got this information, and I feel like we need more information as to maybe surveying the employees, knowing how many are going to take it, which employees are going to take it?
Some of that is, this is an inherently personal decision for each employee to decide whether or not they want to leave the employment of the city early. And I'm not sure that even if we surveyed them, that we would be able to get a good answer back whether somebody wants to do it or not. And they have to look at their own personal finances, their own personal situation, what the retirement impact is for them as an individual. But what we were trying to do is tie this in with the budget. We know we have to pass a budget by the end of the year. You know that you have to do that. So this opens up that window to provide the employee with some decision-making in that period of time now. And then it still provides you then some idea, because we'll know within the election window of what people have decided to take this up by mid-November, so that that could be taken into consideration as we move forward with the budget.
So there isn't any room, we have to do this, decide tonight?
If you don't decide this evening, it's going to push the window further and further into the future, and then you're not going to have any certainty in the budget process.
Okay. I have a few more follow-up questions. One of my questions is, what happens if they take it, we give them the $30,000, and then they don't use it all up? Either they, go on another plan, or they go on Medicare, or they pass away. What happens to the remaining funds?
Well, what we're doing is we're providing them with a $30,000 benefit. So this would still be there. Even with Medicaid, there is a wraparound plan that we have that there's an additional cost to that. So there would be some costs that would draw down from that. So.
Get any of that back?
No.
Okay. Another question I have is, first, right now, what's the breakdown of the premium, the amount that the city pays and the amount that the employee pays?
I don't know that offhand, and I'm looking to see if Janet or Marianne could possibly tell me if they want to come up. Right up to the podium there.
Right now, I'm Janet from the HR office, sorry. Right now, the retirees pay 90% of the premium. The city pays 10%. And then what
about current employees?
Depending upon what level of coverage they have and whether they're in the low or the high deductible plan, it can range from, for single coverage, from 16% to 25%, and for family coverage, from 12% to 30%.
That's what the employee pays?
Yes.
I guess as a follow-up to that, did we consider, or did you consider offering just to pay the share that the city currently pays for that employee instead of the full 30,000? I mean, the way you have it set up, we pay the full premium every year until the 30,000 is gone.
That's correct. That's correct. We looked at that and we discussed what would be something that would potentially entice someone to take this option, and we felt that this was the best approach to take. If you have family coverage, I think the cost might be somewhere near $20,000 that you're going to have to cover once you retire, and in retirement if you continue. So this was an opportunity. We felt that it would allow somebody to at least have a year, and then maybe a half of a year that they could then remain on the health plan as they decide what they want to do or proceed on from there.
And I think you, city manager, and the staff are coming up with a creative way to deal with our budget. I just am not prepared to vote for this tonight without seeing more projected costs and the number of people that it would apply to. So I'm not prepared to vote for it at this point, but I do appreciate you coming back with this. Thank you.
Councilman Euler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to point out that I think this is the right first step in protecting our employees and looking towards addressing the budget challenge. It gives an incentive and allows the employees who are ready to retire or have an interest in leaving early to do so, and also allows us to then protect the ones who want and need to continue employment potentially. And so I would make a motion to approve.
Okay. We have several people that want to talk, but we'll get a motion on the floor. Motion to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilman Turner. Councilman Euler, are you finished?
Yes.
Thank you. Next I had Councilman Sear.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one quick question for Mr. Urick. This offer, a separation offer, would that be on top of the cuts that you already have asked from all the department, the 5% and 10%? How would that be in conjunction with these cuts or on top? How would that come out together?
Well, I think it would be in conjunction with or on top. It depends probably on the number of employees that take it and where they are. What I plan on doing, I have the budget submissions from all the departments, is that I'll come back to you, hopefully at a policy session that we can lock up where I'll talk to you about what budget would look like if we had to cut $8 million out of the general fund, and what that impact would be, so that you can gather that, and then you can give me some direction back if you think that that's the approach you want to go with, or if there's other changes that you want us to make. And I think that we'll try and get that scheduled here in the very near future so that we can do that and have that conversation with you. So it could be in conjunction with, just depending on the department. I mean, if we have one department that has one employee that they might be anticipating making a reduction on, because you have some departments that are pretty small, or you have other departments that are very large. We're going to have to look and see what that impact would be. So I think it's a long-winded way of saying that it's probably going to be together.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Next I had Councilman Graeb.
I appreciate many of the comments of Councilor Jensen and all my colleagues, but Manager, how recently did our affected employees know that this might be available for them?
Well, we crafted it, and we wanted to get it on the agenda, and we put this out. What we would obviously do, if you approve it, is we would start telling our employees about this and starting to talk to them about this as a potential option. We have not done any significant outreach to our employees saying that this is out, other than when we put it on the agenda for you to consider it. In many ways, we want to get the consent of the board of directors to go forward with this before we would go to the employees and say this is what we wanted to do.
I understand, and the devil will be in the details on this. A number of years ago, the state thought it was, and some of our school systems thought it was really going to save a lot of money, allowing a lot of people to retire at 50 and give them 5 years of service credit. And those numbers, the way it worked out, weren't the savings that was contemplated to the point where it was never done again. So I think Councilor Jensen is right. I think we need to be sure of our numbers firmament and projections. Are you pretty sure, solid, that this would be a savings for the taxpayers, assuming that it was agreed to voluntarily by some of our employees?
The program is designed to provide some flexibility to how it's implemented. So I do think that we could make that determination as somebody says they'd like to take this program. The point, though, that needs to be made is that if people are taking this, in many instances, we have to look at it and say, okay, we can't fill the position that comes behind it. Or if we fill it, it has to be filled at a lower rate of salary and benefits than what's currently there now. It can't just be a dollar-for-dollar replacement. Otherwise, you're not making any savings then.
So the primary impetus is savings, correct?
That's absolutely correct.
And, on a night like tonight, when we are thinking about doing what we can to get rid of some of our senior employees, get them out as soon as possible, and maybe hope that they want to leave as soon as possible. I remember what Counselor Sandberg used to say about the loss of institutional knowledge. It's somewhat difficult to calculate a number as to what we're losing. And I certainly hope during this budget process, and I know you're going to do this, Manager, based on my conversations with you, that as we craft a budget, that we talk to our employees about some ways we might be able to do things more effectively and efficiently for their particular department and get suggestions from them, because sometimes our employees are the best source to go to on what we can do to operate our city more efficiently. So just a few thoughts. Thank you, Manager.
Thank you. Councilmember Riggenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's important to point out a sentence in Section 4 here, Mr. Manager, where it talks about the request and approval process. Maybe you need to reiterate the fact that the city manager may declare an employer or category of job classifications ineligible based on financial considerations or the business needs of the city. So instead of getting, how many did you say you were hoping for? 15? If all of a sudden you get 32, you could declare the last 16 in or 17 in as ineligible. So just because somebody's requesting this doesn't mean that request is going to be granted. Is that a correct reading of that?
That is correct.
So we don't need to put a cap on this tonight because the decision of the city manager is final.
That's
correct. So I think that gives us a little assurance that, going back to what Councilman Sears said about how this all plays in with the budget cuts and whatnot, that this is very much a work in progress. And as they say, you don't want to see how the sausage is made. So I appreciate that, and I think that's an important consideration for us to throw in the mix here. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Mayor.
you. Anyone who hasn't spoken yet on this item? Councilman Montalongo.
Thank you, Mayor. I wish we would have had a little bit more time with this here and certainly see some more information on how this is going to work out, as well as I think I would have liked to see a couple other options for us to be able to pick from as well. So I don't think I could support this tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Jensen.
Mr. Mayor, as a follow-up, Mr. Manager, how will we pay for the cost of it? How up front?
Well, again, it depends on how this is, basically we're setting up an account for each of the employees that opt for this program. It would come out of the employer's share of the health insurance costs that we build into the health plan. So it's built into those numbers. we would fold it in and pay it on an annual basis. It would be a pay-as-you-go on an annual basis for that.
Okay, so we wouldn't have to pay like the
not gonna drop-
$450,000 up front?
But no, we're not going to drop $30,000 per employee into an account and leave it sitting there, but it would be paid as we go. So we would know how much each balance was for each employee, and it would be paid out annually.
Now, as a follow-up, does that mean if the employee passes away or something, we don't have to pay it all out?
No, this is a benefit that we're giving to the employees. So I think that's something, certainly if the employee passes away, we'll look at how we can handle that for their estate, because we do have dependents that have stayed on our health plan after the employee has passed away.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion on this item? Councilman Grieb and then Councilman Montalongo.
I'm not going to support it tonight because I think we need to get more information on it and reaction from our employees, and I don't think we have a good handle on it yet. So that's the only reason I'll be voting no. I think we need more time to cogitate, and I think our employees need more time to digest and get a better handle on this. So that's why I will be voting no.
Okay. Councilman Montalongo.
Yes, one last question here. The 30,000, is there any additional taxes for the city on the 30,000?
No.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to make a motion to defer this so we could get that additional information based on the comments I've made and Councilman Montalongo and Councilman Grab. Seeing if there's a second.
We have a substitute motion to defer, and it was seconded by Councilman Grab. Is there discussion on the motion to defer? I would just add that I will not be supporting the motion to defer. By pushing this timeline out farther, it's not going to help our employees make a decision. Our employees are going to, based on the information that the manager presents, they'll be able to make a decision on whether they want to do this or not. So pushing it farther down the road is not going to help them make that decision. I think another thing, I'm trying to keep this specific to the deferral. The more time that we push this discussion down the road, all of our employees know what kind of a budget that we're looking at this year, and what it's probably going to take to make this budget work. And that's going to be with most likely a significant downsizing in the operation. So on top of that uncertainty in some cases of whether that job is even going to be there, now not knowing if they're even going to have an opportunity for this early retirement. So and just to the deferral, that's the reason I will not be supporting the deferral. Councilman Sear.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one more question, Mr. Urick. Just to make sure I understand, this is a voluntary offer. What is the window that they have to make a decision?
We're giving them a window that is, it would open on October 2nd. They would have then until November 15th to decide. So it's a 45-day window to determine whether or not they want to retire. And then they would have until December 15th would be the last date that you would retire, so that we would know by the end of the year how many people have actually taken the program.
Last question. My understanding is this council will meet at least 3 times in the month of October to discuss our financial situation. Is that correct? Thank you.
Okay. So the motion on the floor is for deferral, so we'll try to keep the questions to the deferral. Councilman Euler.
On the subject of deferral, the biggest reason that I've heard for doing that is to get an indication of what the buy-in would be from employees, but if we're not giving any direction for what to go in and solicit buy-in on, I'm not sure what we're going to accomplish here. Is it this $30,000 package, or are we telling them to go out and pitch something else?
Councilwoman Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I understand your point, Mr. Mayor, about pushing this off, but I just am asking for like a 2-week deferral, or maybe longer if that's the will of the council, but just to allow us to get more information and feedback from the employees and to allow us to continue our discussions on the budget.
Okay. Councilman Grab.
Well, the other thing is I don't have a handle on the numbers. To me, it's the devil will be in the details, and I think that if we think that by approving it tonight, we're hustling on down the road to ensure that we're going to save some money, I'm not altogether sure it's going to do that, and I think my prior comments would indicate that I'm not totally sure that it is going to be a cost savings for us. I think that we need to do some more calculations, and I don't think it's ripe for approval tonight. So that, again, I just think it's too soon to vote positively on this. I think a 2-week deferral is responsible.
Okay. Thank you. Seeing no other lights, we have a motion to defer for 2 weeks by Councilman Jensen, seconded by Councilman Gribb. Please cast your ballots on the deferral. The motion fails with 3 ayes and 9 nays. Voting aye were Councilman Gribb, Jensen, and Montalongo. So we're back to the original motion to approve, which was by Councilman Euler, seconded by Councilman Turner. Any final discussion on that one? Seeing none, please cast your ballots. Councilman Jensen? Thank you. That motion passes with 7 ayes, 3 nays. Voting no, Council members Gribb, Jensen, and Montalongo. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
17-294 is a communication from the Human Resource Director and the City Manager with a request to authorize the City Manager to do the following. A is to enter into a 3-year contract with UMR, a United Healthcare company, to be effective 1/1 of 2018 through 12/31 of 2020, to serve as the city's administrator of its medical dental benefits and administer the United Healthcare Choice Plus Hospital Physician Network, and B, to renew for a 3-year period the contract with CVS Caremark and its consortium Employee Healthcare Coalition of Ohio to be effective 1/1/2018 through 12/31 of 2020.
Okay. Separate motions on this, Madam Clerk?
That would be fine, yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Is there a summary available, Mr. Manager, or are we prepared to?
Thank you. Maybe if I could ask Janet to come back up and just kind of summarize what the Labor Management Healthcare Committee did in their discussions and why they selected UHMR or UMR, excuse me, and we can.
Well, the Healthcare Committee conducted an RFP process this year. Normally we do it, excuse me, on a 3-year cycle, but we had done renewals with our previous carriers for the last couple of years. So with that RFP process, one of our major interests this year was to try and get all 3 local hospitals to be administered by one carrier. Those of you who are on the council that are on the insurance, you know that right now we have a choice whether we go with one carrier or the other carrier. It's been very hard to administer, so that was really important to us. And out of the RFP process, there were 2 finalists that came up with the ability to do that. Blue Cross Blue Shield was one of the finalists, but they weren't able to give us our plan with the Unity Point network. We would have had to separate the plans again. So United Healthcare came out as the best. We had them reprice the claims from last year so we could see, is their network administration discount going to really be helpful? And we found with that spreadsheet that we included in the council communication that there will be significant savings with United Healthcare. In the past, it's always been hard to fight the discounting arrangement that OSF had with Humana. Excuse me, so we were able to come up with a better choice for all of our employees. They won't have to pick and choose hospitals. They can go to any hospital in the local area and be administered by one company. So we were real excited to be able to offer that to our employees.
Thank you, Janet. Any questions or a motion? Councilman Gribb?
This is what I was looking for in what we just got through approving over my wishes, the kind of employee buy-in and feedback and seemingly very solid support from this joint committee. We just don't have that with this other program coming as a bolt out of the blue. So I commend staff for working well with our employees and coming forward with this tonight. This is something I can wholeheartedly support, unlike the last item, which I think was ill-considered.
Was that a motion, Councilman? Okay. We have a motion to approve, Councilwoman Jensen, seconded by Councilman Euler. Is there additional discussion on this item? Seeing none, please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. And on item B. Motion. Councilman Jensen, motion to approve, seconded by Councilman Euler. Is there discussion on this item? Seeing no lights, please cast your ballots. That motion passes unanimously as well. Madam Clerk.
17-295 is a communication from the City Manager and Director of Public Works with a request for the following. A is to approve the selection process and direct staff to enter into an agreement with Heartland Parking in the amount of $496,512 to install and implement new parking access and control equipment for the 4 city parking decks. And B would be to adopt an ordinance amending the City of Peoria 2017 amended annual budget relating to the capital fund to recognize the receipt of $158,988 from the technology deck escrow account and the corresponding expenditure to replace the control equipment.
Thank you. Director Reese, did you want to give us an overview on this one, please?
Sure. So the parking garage, the city owns 4 parking decks. And the equipment to enter into those parking decks is a little over 20 years old. We've been limping them along for the last couple of years. We're to a point where we can't actually buy parts for them anymore. We've been going out on eBay and purchasing those. And those are the cards you push into the deck to enter into them. And we also don't allow credit card transactions for our decks. So we've been looking at possibilities the last couple of years as far as what we could do, and we are looking to, or we're recommending this tonight, because what this would allow, this is new equipment for all the entrance and exits at our gates, or at the decks. It is a cash machine, so there's still cash allowed, but it's just a machine instead of a person. So this actually reduces our personnel costs in the decks by about $150,000 a year. But then we could also allow these to use new proxy cards. So instead of sticking the card into the reader and back out, you just wave it over a reader that then will open the gate to allow you in. You could also pay by credit card or debit card as we move forward in this, or a QR code on your phone. And these are also adaptable to Passport Parking or Spot Hero. We've been trying to figure out a way to market our decks better. We've seen utilization decline in them. And some of the feedback we've heard is that a lot of people don't even know they exist. So another potential aspect or thing we can do with this software and this equipment is tie it into possibly the Civic Center when they purchase online tickets for a Broadway show or something like that. You could prepay for your event parking so that you would get a ticket ahead of time, and so you know that you have a spot reserved for you in any one of our decks when you come down and do it. And so it is a substantial cost, but it's something that we have a fear if we don't change in the near future that the equipment that we have existing will become functionally obsolete.
Okay. Any questions for Director Reese? Councilman Sear.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Reese, just a quick question here. I can't vote for this request tonight. I requested a study to be done a few months ago. I've not seen it yet. After reviewing our audit for 2016, and we all know the deficit we have right now in the budget, I'm more on the side right now to look and put everything on the table and have a study to see if we sell these assets. We have $120 million in debt right now. So I'm looking at where our valuable assets are. If we would sell, what the tax revenues and sales tax would do to our budget versus us investing $500,000 in technology and not knowing what the difference would be. So I'm very interested in asking you for a study. Our revenues based on if we don't own it, taxes and sales tax versus us investing the $500,000. Do we need a motion for that, Mr. Mayor, or can you just request it?
You could entertain a motion to defer until we get that information. Would probably be the easiest way to do that. Mr. Manager,
I would request a deferral, Mr. Mayor.
And maybe just a real quick question before I take a second, Councilman, if it's okay. Timing-wise, waiting for that information back. I mean, we're buying equipment on eBay right now. It sounds like.
I mean, we can certainly get that information back to you in 2 weeks, so we can have that. So, and I apologize, Councilman. I had that on the list for the budget discussion, so it's there. It's just.
But you can provide it in 2 weeks if we just do a 2-week deferral.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Councilman's here, so the motion would be for a 2-week deferral.
Yes, sir.
Okay, seconded by Councilman Ruckriegel. Discussion on the deferral. Seeing none, please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
17-296 is a request to concur with the recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission to A, adopt an ordinance approving a special use in a Class C1 general commercial district with waivers to allow the establishment of a convenience cash business for the property located at 5201 North Big Hollow Road, or to concur with the recommendation from staff to deny the ordinance approving the special use.
Councilman Montalongo.
Thank you, Mayor. So the reason for this ordinance tonight is to allow a current cash business to relocate to this location. We are not adding a new cash store. The particular cash business was asked to relocate to make way for a development, which the building they are located in right now would be demolished. So there's a new restaurant proposed to go in my district, which I think most of you know what that is. The petitioner wants to be close to its current customer base that it's developed. Truly, they're doing us a favor by relocating to a new location to make way for this development. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve item A.
Okay. Motion to approve item A. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Riggenbach. Discussion. Councilman Montalongo? Okay. Anyone else? Okay. We have a motion and a second. Please cast your ballots. That motion passes with 9 ayes, 1 nay. Voting no, Councilmember Ruckriegel. Madam Clerk.
Yes, we're at unfinished business. 17-117 is a request to adopt an ordinance amending Appendix A, the Unified Development Code of the City of Peoria, relating to various text amendments.
Director Black.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the first set of amendments to the Unified Development Code that was adopted by Council approximately this time last year. These are amendments that were brought to Council earlier this year, and the request was that they be deferred until after the Council completed the strategic planning process, which was wrapped up a few weeks ago. In reading the minutes from the strategic planning process, it was clear that the direction from the Council was to add additional design and material standards to our development codes, and therefore we shall go forth and do that. But I would request that the Council adopt this package of changes at this point, because they really are cleanup items that were left out when the Unified Development Code was first adopted. And then we would anticipate that within the next 3 months or so, we would bring back a series of recommendations to you for material and design standards.
Thank you. Councilman Gribb?
Director Black, in reference to West Main Street, everything I see here indicates that what we're proposing is consistent with our form-based codes up on West Main. I don't see any significant alteration at this point in time. Am I missing something on that?
Yeah, no, sir. There are really no changes to any of the form districts in this, and there were no changes to the form districts in the adoption of the Unified Development Code. We believe that because of the pretty intensive public input in the development of the form district regulations, that any modification to those regulations should also have public input. So they are no change.
Thank you, Mayor.
Any other discussions on this item or a motion? Councilman Riggenbach, a motion to approve, seconded by Councilwoman Akison. I'm seeing no lights. In that case, please cast your ballots. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Madam Clerk,
If there's no further unfinished business,
do we have any unfinished business to come before the council tonight? Unfinished? Okay. Madam Clerk?
we would be at,
Is that unfinished? Okay. Councilwoman Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just, as a follow-up to a request I made, I think, at the last meeting, I'm hoping that we'll have a more in-depth analysis of consolidating, the potential of consolidating the township within the city. I don't know if that's going to come back to the council meeting or during our budget discussions, but I'd like to have a more thorough analysis of job duties and whether some of those could be absorbed by some of the people here at the city currently, and that kind of thing.
We will get your report back. We've been working on it. We just didn't have it ready for this evening.
Further unfinished business, Councilman Gribb.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The significant expenditure we have made on University Street, and right now I want to focus on the expenditures that this body has approved for the stretch of University from Forest Hill to War Memorial Drive. We have authorized the expenditure of about $840,000 to eliminate many of those unsightly overhead power lines. And I just want to say, and I did discuss this with Director Reese today, that it is my understanding that they are behind getting it done and that we have not fully paid Ameren yet for a job completed. We have only dispersed a portion of the fund. Do we have a handle on when they're going to get this particular project done? Because I was led to believe that it'd all be done by April, and it is not.
Well, the Public Works Director has left the room. I think that he is meeting with Ameren next week to discuss this matter, so we'll get a better timeline for you and get you an answer.
Well, we see, lots of commercials about all the wonderful things they're doing for us. And, in District 2, and thank you, City Council, for supporting the expenditure of this sum of money to clean this up. And I, in turn, will support these efforts as we do major road projects in the other districts. And I know something's coming down in District 1 and in District 4. So I think they need to be about the business of doing what they said they were going to do. I've heard one reason after the other as to why it's not been done, and can understand maybe some temporary delays, but not going all the way now, almost to, right into the fall. Pretty soon the snow is going to fly. I know it seems hard to believe, and that job's not going to be done. So, Manager, if you could give us, since we approved this as a body, a report back as to when they intend to complete this project so that we can pay them the balance, at our next regularly scheduled meeting, that would be appreciated. And I'm not blaming our staff. I'm just suggesting that we need to get a handle on it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. Unfinished business, Councilman Turner.
That should have been new business, I'm sorry.
Any further unfinished business? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
We're at new business.
New business, Councilman Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to announce that on October the 5th, Councilman Ruck Regal and I will have our breakfast chat meeting from 7:30 to 8:30. We've got a guest speaker coming in to talk about the expense side of the budget.
Okay.
Any citizen, neighborhood leaders invited.
Thank you very much. Councilman Ruckriegel.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a reminder that tonight we've got our Peoria honor flight coming back in. They went out early this morning to D.C., and I think many people are familiar with this program. It truly is a wonderful program for our veterans to be able to see, in many cases, their memorial for the first time out in D.C. honoring their service. They come back to the Greater Peoria Airport about 9:30. And it's always a great crowd to be able to welcome them back. And just as a reminder for all those that are listening that your attendance and your support is greatly appreciated. It's a wonderful partnership with the Boys and Girls Club here in our local vicinity. And it's one of those evenings that's always a good one to be able to show our support for the work that they've done. So just a reminder on that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Sear.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick discussion with our city manager. I'd like to have a report on how are we doing with the online budget challenge.
So we had 5 public budget meetings. At our last budget meeting, I mentioned that we had over 1,250 people that had taken the online budget challenge. We had received probably about 100 comments that we're compiling for you, and as we meet next time to discuss the budget, we'll have a presentation on the budget challenge, what people thought about it, what they voted for, what their comments were. Right now, about 65% of the people that took the budget challenge balanced the budget. 35% of them didn't. But it was great feedback, I think, to get that from the community at that level. So we were pretty pleased with the numbers. And it's still open, so there could still be more people taking it right now as we speak.
Last question. I personally attended 2 of the meetings for the 4th District and the 5th District. First of all, congratulations on the presentation. I think they're outstanding. But I'm really questioning if it's the best use of our resources, because the 2 meetings I've been at, I mean, there's less than 10 people really from our constituent. Are we communicating the right way? How come the attendance is so low, basically? I mean, there must be something we can do to get people to participate better.
I think that was one of the reasons why we went with the online budget challenge tool, is to try and garner some input or raise awareness of what it's like to be a city council member online. The difficulty with public meetings is, and this is no offense to our friends in the media, but you post it, they publicize it the first time, they get the press release, and then it's, well, we've already done that. And so it's tough to get that notice back out to folks. So we need to find a different way. Looking back at that, that's something that we're going to have to huddle and figure out a different way to engage folks with, to get them out. Because as you know, at those meetings, we didn't have the kind of turnout from the public that we were hoping for. And I think that's something that we need to look at.
Okay. Councilman Regenbach.
Thursday night at 6 p.m. at the First English Lutheran Church on the corner of Forest Hill and Wisconsin, Councilmember Ruck Regal and I will be hosting the second East Bluff get-together. We had a great turnout at the end of July as we just invited folks to come. We had the police chief was there, some public works, Director Black, and some great dialogue, lots of good questions asked. We're going to give report backs, if you will, to the citizens for some of the issues raised. But most importantly, we're going to continue the dialogue and continue to get feedback from the people in the neighborhood, what what the challenges are and what the needs are. And I know we've been doing this in different parts of town, and this has just been a great dialogue for us, and looking forward to it. So if you live in the East Bluff, make sure you have Thursday marked on your calendar. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Further new business, Councilman Montalongo.
Thank you, Mayor. I as well will be having the coffee and conversation with the community, 4th District, but certainly anybody from the city is welcome to join us. First Thursday of the month, October 5th, at Peoria in Westlake Shopping Center.
Thank you. Any other new business before the council this evening? New business. I would just like to repeat the mention that I made at the beginning of the meeting. I was requested to let everybody know that the Peoria Friendship House right here on Madison Avenue has a new CEO, Robert Montgomery, and he's starting in that new position by living on the roof of the Peoria Friendship House to raise awareness of all that they're doing and in an effort to raise $500,000. So feel free to stop by, learn more about the Friendship House and what they're doing, make a donation, and we are assured by the board of the Peoria Friendship House that they're not going to let Mr. Montgomery come down until they raise $500,000. Thank you for that. Seeing no lights for additional new business, Madam Clerk.
We're at citizens' opportunity to address the city council.
Citizens to address, could we get name and address for the record, please? And we have a 5-minute speaking limit. Up first is Mr. Valley.
Good evening. Name is Ron Valley, Director of Programs at Helping Hand Resource Center located at 1211 South Blaine Street in Peoria, Illinois. I am happy to announce this evening that Helping Hand Resource Center, along with RMH Foods located in Morton, Illinois, have signed an agreement for a long-term employment program for residents in 61605, 604, and 603. 2 weeks ago, we started 15 individuals full-time, mandatory overtime. Monday, we will be starting 17 additional, and by the end of October, we should hit anywhere between 80 to 108 individuals working full-time employment. Doesn't seem like much, but that's $1.9 million a year added into the economy in 61605, 04, and 03. We give thanks to RMH Foods, which is their parent company, Sandridge Foods. We give thanks to them encouraging employment amongst low-income families, reentry individuals, and individuals who are struggling to make their life prosperous. Along with that, we'd also like to announce this evening that Grausinger Motor Arena in Bloomington, Illinois, we will start employment there tomorrow evening with our residents here in Peoria, which will be transported out to Bloomington to work at their sites. We signed a contract with them, so that will also generate additional revenue of payroll expenditures going back into 61605. I'm limited on time. I did want to talk about several other subjects that pertain to job training and that pertain to employment in our low-income areas and introducing programs that could possibly enrich individuals for job training. Last week, 2 weeks ago, this council did the great honor of passing an amendment to allow a $50,000 budget for job training programs in 61605, or the South TIF District. It was the beginning of something that is immensely needed in our low-income areas. However, the Southside TIF District is a very small portion of our entire low-income region that pertains to 61604, 05, 03, and 02. I would encourage our city council members to come up with a way to figure out a job training program that enables individuals from all low-income areas to be able to seek job training programs within their living area. You know, sometimes We have to understand that sometimes we as a city and as a business, that sometimes you have to spend money to make money. Currently, Helping Hand Resource Center's director, John Wright, has composed an idealism that in order for us to bring jobs into our local economy, into our neighborhoods, so that low-income families can strive to protect their families, support their families, sometimes you have to think outside the box. The issue that most individuals are having when it comes to employment is transportation, getting there. Being able to get there on time and being able to get to areas that are far away from their home. Because let's face it, in 61605, there is no thriving business that provides numerous amount of jobs. So they have to go outside of their district. So in order for us to continue employing individuals in 61605, we decided we have to spend money to make money. And that is to provide transportation to these 80 individuals that are going to Morton, Illinois every single day. Sometimes you have to spend money to make money, because the money that the revenue will bring back into that area is immense compared to the cost of gas to support 80 individuals in full-time employment. Sometimes you have to sacrifice funds in order to see a real profit. And the profit isn't about bringing in money. The profit is about seeing lives change. I want to encourage you, in my brief 15 seconds that I have, I want to encourage you, my city council members, to understand that our budget crisis is not just generated because we're low on money. It's generated because we did not do preventative maintenance.
Next up is Mr. Sierra.
Savino Sierra from the First Ward. To everybody, I say, peace be with you. I forgot at the last meeting to mention some of the fiestas, the Oktoberfest. That's one of the biggest and best of a lot of the celebrations we have. I used to be a voting member of that society. My children, that they have Polish and German relations that are in that, what you call bunch.
He is going to.
Getting back to some of the things that we need in the First Ward, we need a lot of striping of our streets, especially around the school areas. And we'd like to get that done. I brought it up before, and nothing has happened. And another bad thing is we have too many those wreckers, you know, that pick up cars that have to be taken to either to be parked or to be repaired. Some of them been in a wreck, so, but they anymore they're getting those wreckers. They park in the streets, and they're pretty wide. And traffic department should do something about that. And we're still having people meeting in the traffic lanes, and I don't know how come they haven't been stopped and give them a ticket, you know? That's the only way you're going to get them to don't be doing that, you know? They're in the traffic lane and people are coming, trying to drive by, and you have to wait till they get finished with their news and views. And that isn't right. That's against all our ordinances that we have. And like I've said before, we have plenty of ordinances, but we better, what do you call it, do something about it. You just let a lot of things go by, you know. I see sometimes the squad cars just go by. I don't know, they might have something else bigger to do, but we got to find a way to get rid of all this bad stuff, you know. And you talk about trash and that, we got plenty of it down there on our streets, and it's a shame. You know, we talk about how beautiful Peoria is and everything, and that's just on the south side. It's all over, you know. Even uptown here, you have places that are just full of trash and what have you, cigarette butts, and you go to some of these grocery stores, and when you come out, you see the cigarette butts are stepped on the sidewalk there, and it's really something, you know. I don't think that makes Peoria beautiful. So let's get with it, and we got to knuckle down and take care of some of these bad points that Peoria has. And if they don't know where they're at, just jump in my car and I'll take you around and show you where they're at. So with that, I say good night.
That was the last I had. Was there, I don't have any more cards. Are there cards that I expect coming? Okay. Next up, Mr. Coleman.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jeremy Coleman. I'm on the board of directors for Bike Peoria for advocacy and education. And we've been working for about 2.5 months now with Mike Keating out of Chicago. He's one of the top bicycle lawyers in the state and also very well nationally recognized. And some of the legislation that I heard in here tonight is it's a very good step forward for our city. If we're going to have an increased infrastructure for bicycles, then we're going to have a lot of confused drivers, a lot of confused officers. They don't know how to enforce it. Drivers don't know how to drive around us. This is all new to them, especially if they're born and raised in Peoria. So we need to have this. Thank you much.
Thank you. Ms. Collins?
Hi. First of all, I would like to ask for Captain Scally to come over to the mic, please. I'm a citizen here in Peoria, and I was at the Stand for Peace last night due to the incident that happened last week. Not there to pass judgment or make an opinion, because my motto is, let he who without sin cast the first stone. I would like to say that it was the family's request that the Peoria Police Department was not there. That is not all of the citizens of Peoria, but the ones that were there respected their feelings. I have my own organization, Compassionate Hearts. I fund the Peoria Police Department and the Peoria Fire Department for the cooling when it's hot. And I just want that you guys to know, when it was Stand for Peace, some people were looking for city officials not to make an opinion, not to even say a word, just to be present, to say we as a city are going to stand together for peace. I have my own personal opinion. It doesn't make a difference. I stand with the PPD because I have family on the PPD. What I do know, one protocol is not for every situation. We do have to find money for more education, and that is not to point the finger to say that anyone is wrong. I am too, have a professional job. I am a nurse, so I understand from all angles. But I just think if there's another stand for peace, not a stand down for shooting, it is okay for city officials to show up because we're all one. We're all living here together. You don't have to make a statement. Just to be present says enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
We do not have an executive session, and so we would be at adjournment.
Thank you. We have a motion to adjourn. Councilman Turner, seconded by Councilman Riggenbach. Seeing no objections, please cast your ballots. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you to H. Wayne Wilson and his listening audience, WCBU, as well as Cable Channel 22. This meeting is adjourned.